the STEMinism Equity in STEM podcast.
Hello and welcome to STEMinism, the Equity in STEM podcast, where we have conversations around race representation and the lack of in science,
technology,
engineering,
and mathematics.
That's right. My name is Clive Soa.
And I am Ali Saad.
That's right. And today we are here for episode 3 of the podcast. And obviously, as you can see, we're not together in person today, but we had to stick to the deadline. So we thought we would make use of the great virtual world that we have today. So we're coming to you virtually.
Live on Riverside.
That's right. Big up Riverside. Sponsorship inbound if we can discuss that later. But a great product, especially for the virtual experience. And today we're going to be talking about our latter two values in terms of equity and mindset. So Ali, should we get straight into it? And maybe
absolutely.
You can talk to us about equity versus equality, thoughts, definitions, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So yeah, equity is an interesting one. I think it's something that has, let's say, more so become the focus of a lot of groups working in diversity and inclusion. The E in DE&I is still equality, as far as I'm aware. But I think as a society, we should start striving towards equity. Maybe we'll start with some definitions just to give some perspective. So equality is often defined as, funnily enough, the state of being equal, but specifically to do with status, which I think is fair enough, but probably not possible in our capitalist society. Rights, which I think is essential. I think as a society we should strive for equality of rights, and that's partly why we're here today. And opportunities, which, this is probably the thing that we target when we talk about equality, because it's definitely not equality of outcome. It's more likely going to be equality of opportunity. So then we have equity, on the other hand, which can be defined as the quality of being fair or impartial. And what I see as the difference between the two things is equality may not be applicable to our society as we've structured it currently, whereas equity takes into account different people's starting grounds. Some people might have grown up in, let's just pick a random example, Bow in East London, compared to Chelsea in West London, and making some sweeping generalizations, maybe your outcomes are more likely to be better if you were born and grew up in Chelsea. So we can, in the path of striving towards equity, potentially create some benefits that are more likely going to get the person from Bow up to the same level as the person from Chelsea. But hey, I'm not very good at examples. How about you give some examples?
You know, I love a good EG. I think that's exempli gratia for those that love a bit of Latin. But yeah, examples. I think there's an example that often comes to mind, and it's quite a simple example. So if we imagine 3 people, could be anyone, doing anything, trying to get from A to B, and let's say this is about 5 kilometers, just for a simple example. And imagine one person is going to hop in a car, drive the distance, going to take them probably 5 minutes. Second person is going to get a bus. So they're going to walk to the local bus stop, hop on a bus, wait for the bus, get to that destination. May take them about, let's say, 15, 20 minutes. And then you got the third person who's going to walk, run, use that God-given manpower or woman power and get to A to B. So that's the status quo, as it were. That's the current situation. And so when
5K
you look
is
at,
going to take you like 45 minutes, maybe a
if
bit
you
longer even.
if you're running, I think a standard 5K time is about maybe 25, 30 minutes. So if you're
Yeah.
walking, probably about an hour, let's
I'll
say.
take a minute. I'll take a
And
minute,
depends
yeah.
on conditions as well. Is it sunny? Is it rainy, etc.
That's a really good point.
But I digress. So equality is where you say, okay, we're going to give all of these people £5 to help everyone to get from A to B. So the person who's hopping in that car probably going to not make too much difference. They might get some petrol. They might stop off on the way to get some food. Minor. The second person who's got some money, but maybe not as much money to get a car, but now they can take that bus money and the £5 they've been given, and they can get in an Uber, and it will take them 5 minutes to get there as well. So we've improved that situation a little bit. We've given them an added, reduced the amount of time and made it more convenient. And then the last person who's going to walk, now maybe that £5 is enough for them to upgrade to the bus level, and rather than walking the whole distance, they can walk to the station and get a bus. So we've done something, helped everyone out to some extent, but equity looks at giving those that need the most help, the most support and resources. So, for example, the person that's driving, they're okay. We're not going to get them any quicker by giving them any more money. So we'll leave them to the side for now. The person who's getting the bus, by giving them £5, we can now speed up that journey from waiting to the bus, getting on the bus, however long that takes, waiting all the stops, maybe taking 15 minutes, to now getting an Uber, and it will take them 5 minutes to get there as well. And then the person that is walking, if we give them £10 for them to now be able to get from A to B in an Uber as well, now everyone gets to the same destination at the same time. And this example can represent so many things. It can be applying for jobs, it can be getting to school, it can be getting to work. And when you multiply that every day, if every day you've got to do that 60-minute walk, and every day someone's got to make a 5-minute journey, that incrementally adds. And as I said, it applies to so many different things in so many different ways. That's why I think it's important to have an equitable approach as opposed to an equal approach. And these fingers, they're not all the same length, but if you want to pick up a glass of water,
Yeah.
you're going to need all of them to do that. So
I was thinking the first guy who's got 55 minutes extra at work is going to be CEO much faster than the last person who's got a grueling 1 hour walk in the snow. I think the example of that you gave is really good at demonstrating why equity is about fairness. And it's also probably why it's quite jarring to people nowadays, because, I've already mentioned it already. We live in a capitalist society. We've historically been favoring that person who's already got the car by giving them £10. It's a different outlook entirely. And I think there's untold benefits, because actually what you end up with is a society or a workforce or whatever it might be, where all of these group of people are arriving, who are able to turn up with the most amount. They can turn up in their best self. Let's say, it's much easier to turn up ready to go if you've just got a taxi to work, rather than having a 1 hour walk in the snow. Instead, you're going to turn up pissed off. So I think what you end up with is better outcomes actually for the organization where everyone's turned up at. And this is true in the data. This is true in our experience. And we're here really striving to try and make a difference in that space. I think a lot of people are finally starting to think that way.
I'm going to flip it on its head as well. The person that is walking every morning for 60 minutes, if they're doing that every day for a year, please believe they're going to be the fittest in the room after a couple of years. And that also comes with a different mindset, a different perspective. If you're getting the bus, you know all the local routes in the morning. You've got that connection with the community. So despite the different starting grounds, what may be perceived as challenges can also be looked at as ways to grow and tapping into that experience. So I think it's not where you start that is important. It plays a pivotal and key role, but it's where you finish and how you go on that journey that is the important thing. And as I said, our parents tell us many times about how they used to walk X amount of kilometers to get to school, and hopefully that's why they're gonna live long and be fit for long periods of time. And us modern day couch potatoes who we can work from home and sit behind desks all day, how is that going to affect our health outcomes going forward? So I think there's definitely two sides to the coin, but also speaks to the importance and the benefits of diversity and equity as well. When you're trying to solve a problem or when there's a challenge, if everyone's coming at it with the same lens or with the same perspective or with the same direction, you're always going to come up with the same solution. And that's one way of looking at it. Takes a team, and I think, as you said, factually speaking, there's so many examples of how diverse workforces are demonstrating increased turnover, increased revenue, in a world where we're trying to tap into global markets and emerging markets, and you need a product to appeal to different demographics. You're going to need the insights of different people. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, really, really good point that you raised by flipping it on its head there. That's a really interesting perspective. But yeah, I think that whole team will benefit from the person who knows all of the side routes, has a good connection with all of the members of the community, and maybe the third person who's well connected to the board. Together, you actually have the most productive, the most efficient, and this is how we win, isn't it? We come together and we win. So the campaign is changing the E in DEI from equality to equity. That's the end game. And I think it's a really, really important time for it all, because let's take the example of chemistry. So we've maybe alluded to it in the past, but if not, I'll re-mention it again here. In chemistry, you have essentially the huge drop-off in black chemists after undergraduate level as you start going towards masters, PhDs, or even academia in terms of staff. You just have this alarming drop-off in chemists. And, there is something behind that, which we're ultimately trying to understand with this podcast. But there's essentially a failing going on somewhere. And I think the failing is because we haven't been thinking in this equitable mindset. Any comments to kick us off there before we continue?
Yeah, I think one alarming stat is that when the recent Missing Elements report conducted by the Royal Society of Chemistry was released, was at one point there was one black chemistry professor in the UK. Just
Mad.
And black people in the UK represent approximately 3% of the population.
Yeah. And
this one black professor, Professor Robert Mackay, represented less than 0.5%, and because of anonymization, they had to round it down to 0. So it was only the fact that he was part of the report and he spoke about his feelings about it. But that was astonishing to me, because, as you said, when we were at Kingston University, there was a very diverse cohort at undergraduate and postgraduate level. But there's clearly some barriers, some challenges that people like us face in not only getting into industry and getting into academia, but also progressing up through the hierarchy and into senior leadership. So what really impressed me was also the action plan they put together. So it wasn't just looking at what we coined as the depressing data, which is mirrored in academia and industry, it was, okay, what can we do? And so they put a significant amount of funding together to support programs specifically for ethnic minorities, so black people, Asian, mixed people of mixed descent, and trying to address some of the barriers to success that they had seen. So I think that was really key and important. And I think that's where it starts. There's going to be loads of conversations, as we know, back in 2020. There were loads of conversations back then, but who decided to take action? And so I think it's definitely, they're also looking at increasing representation within that organisation and within government committees and senior leadership, and providing opportunities. So I think they've got the Broaden Horizon programme where they partnered with 10 companies in industry, and they're providing internships, paid opportunities with that specific target. So again, it's looking at the equity rather than the equality.
Who needs it the most?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who needs it the most? I think that's a really good point that you touched on. You just threw me back to 2020, and I had a lot of experiences. You know, we were talking about Black Lives Matter. We were talking about unfair treatment of black people by the police, and there was this backlash, which I'm sure you can remember, of all lives matter, and basically people feeling upset that we were focusing on black people in terms of their representation and their rights. Obviously feeling maybe a little bit triggered. I find for the most part, people do get defensive when they're being challenged, especially when the word racism is thrown around. Everything gets a little bit hectic. But let me ask you this. What have you got to say to the people who disagree with the approach to equity? So I would say, for example, in chemistry, we need to address the lack of black people in chemistry first before we start moving to other groups. So what would you say to the so-called naysayers who are like, nah, we need to be fully inclusive immediately and represent for all of the races, all of the genders, as many different ways that you want to break us up into different groups?
Well, I think recently the richest man in the world, or one of the richest men in the world, Elon Musk, came out and said, and we'll see if we can pull up the tweet now, but it was something along the lines of diversity, equity, inclusion programs need to be abolished because they are actually racist. And I'm quoting loosely. I'll make sure we put the tweet up just to reference it directly.
This guy grew up in apartheid South Africa, right?
Need I say more? Maybe we need to get Elon on the podcast one day. We'll add that to
Explain
to the
yourself.
bucket list. No, I think it's more a discussion. Maybe discussion, understanding his perspective. Because if that's the perspective of one of the richest men in the world, how do we get to an equitable society? This week I was reading about something that was said about Diane Abbott, which was shocking and
Deep.
terrible, and again just shows the challenges that, especially the double-layered challenges that black women face.
The first black politician, I think, right, in Parliament?
Exactly. There's been an MP for over 20 years, and these are the things that she has to deal with on a daily basis from senior stakeholders. And I think it shows that this isn't just a problem in science, it's a problem in society, and it's not going to be solved or resolved in a day, but it starts by having these discussions, taking action. I think there needs to be repercussions when things are said that are out of hand, and if they're not dealt with, there'll be repeat behaviours. So, yeah,
I say we got to call Elon Musk out, to be honest, man, because like you said, like it is about having conversations like this. But if people don't want to hear it, then how? Okay, yeah. We need to hear people's perspectives because understanding is the key to progression.
Context as well. Context
is also, context is very important. But do we just is it okay for people to just make statements like that and to go undismissed and unchallenged? I don't know.
Well, when you own the platform that you're making said statements on,
Say whatever you want. Freedom of speech, isn't it?
please don't block us on X, Elon. Please don't block us on X.
We're trying to promote a podcast here. Okay,
So-
interesting. So I think we should move on. I think we should move on. So our last value that we wanted to talk about to complete the STEM, STEM, the M is for mindset. And yeah, after self, which is the S, mindset is the key one for me, which I feel like has made the biggest difference in my life because, you know, back in the day, I'd say I was a follower, you know. I was doing whatever I could to feel included. I was ticking the boxes, dotting the T's, crossing the I's, and doing everything someone else's way because I felt like that's what I needed to do to feel included and to feel like I could get ahead. But I have changed in my middle age, let's say, in my early middle age. And now my mindset is such that I feel much more in control of my outcomes. Control, it's relative. I'm much more authentically myself. And I feel like I attribute this to, I call it a growth mindset. So maybe my question to you is, can you explain the difference between the two, I guess, most common types of mindsets that we encounter, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset?
Yeah, definitely. I never imagined you as a sheep, as a follower.
Yeah, I was a follower, man.
I'm glad
I feel
met
like
you
we're all
after
followers
that.
at some point. We're all followers at some
true,
point, man. I'm the black
True.
sheep in the room.
Let's not go down the barbar black sheep
Yeah.
route. That has some interesting historical connotations.
It does indeed.
Before
It
I
does
digress again, fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Maybe just to start off with, I think it's about your approach to things like intelligence, your talents, your skills, and a fixed mindset is pretty much that. You are born with your God-given talents. Kofi has been good at mathematics, so he's going to be a mathematical genius, and Tolu has always been great with his hands, and so he's going to be an engineer. Or alternatively, Tom's terrible at maths. He's never going to get anywhere in life. And you think what you're given is what you've got, and you have to work with it. Whereas a growth mindset is an approach where, kind of says it in the title, you can grow, you can develop your talents, your intellect, your intelligence, and it's not something that is limited by your starting point. So again, it's about where you start. And no, it's not about where you start, although that is a key factor. It's more about where you finish and the journey you take on the way to get there. So a great concept, and I think that I like that ties in with especially the mindset, is neuroplasticity. And that is the ability of the brain to grow new neural pathways based on what you do and what you learn. So, for example, black cab drivers have shown to have an increased hippocampus due to the fact that they have to go through a test where they remember literally every street in London. So through that repetitive learning and going through all those back roads and cutting through all the traffic, they've got a part of their brain that's larger than most. And again,
The memory center.
Exactly. And when you look at violinists, were the top tier, the grade 8 level violinists, they have increased motor cortexes related to the fine movements that are associated with the movements. And so what I found as well interesting is that the earlier you start, the more valuable your brain is. So for the many of us that our parents tried to get us to learn instruments when we were early, and we're thinking, I'm not trying to join a rock band. Actually, they were just trying to develop our brains. So maybe if they explained the concept of neuroplasticity to us, we would have been more agreeable. But I think it's
I just wanted to add to that, and like, a lot of the research nowadays talks about how your brain is still developing, you know, quite late into your 20s, 25, 26, the brain is still generally developing to never its final form, because as you mentioned, neuroplasticity, you can change habits, you can change ideas from practice and experience, but it does go to show that quite late into your this is a confusing way of saying it. Late into your early adult life, around 25, let's say.
Oh, I was gonna say,
your brain
give us
is
a
still
number.
forming those very important connections to do with how you're going to understand and frame the world. So, yeah, never consider that your mindset is fixed, because honestly, it's not. But it is really just a way of thinking. Obviously, there's neurodivergency that we have to consider. Not everyone can just say, today I'm going to be this person, boom. It is more complicated than that, for sure. But I'm of the thought background that it is possible for anyone, really, with the right amount, maybe amount of coaching or guidance, or just from self-discipline. You can reach. There's no limitations to what your brain can do. You get those monks like in Tibet who have like gotten to the point where they don't feel pain anymore. Where they can like put needles into their arms and they don't feel anything. Best believe that's a growth mindset. Yeah, they've decided pain doesn't work on them anymore.
I agree, and maybe Tibetan monks is a bit far removed for our audience. Can you give us any ideas or examples, maybe in your career development, that apply growth mindset, and maybe specifically in equity and STEM as well?
Yeah, sure. The first thing I guess that came to mind was being in the office. This was a few job roles ago, and I went to head office in London, and where I worked at one of the manufacturing sites. So if you're going to head office, is where all the CEOs and all the senior leadership team sit. And I went in one day, fine buttoned up suit, dressed well, thought about how I was going to style my hair that day. Because I was really concerned about the perception of the leadership team. What would they think of me? Would they say anything about the way that I looked? Are they forming opinions on me based on, I guess these aesthetic qualities, which are, in a lot of people's minds. But yeah, let's say I wasn't able to show up in a way which was authentic, and I think I actually underdid myself because of that. Now, I spent a lot of that year trying to work on my mindset. And I remember the next time I went to London, I think when I was there that time, actually, I had a conversation with the CFO, and I was like, tell me something that you think has been really beneficial to your growth and to your career. And he said, just being as authentic as possible. So I was like, okay, hold that pin. And I turned up again 6 months or 8 months later, wearing a hoodie with a wolf on it. I felt much more at home, felt much more at peace. Of course, this joker still pulled me up on it, though. It was like, what are you wearing? And I was like, no. We've already had this discussion. You've asked me to show up authentically, and here I am. And I think, yeah, sort of since then, and of course, no one really made any point about it. And I think because I'd started to think with this growth mindset, I was really able to channel the best sense of myself. So yeah, there's definitely an aspect of authenticity related to the growth mindset. What about you?
Wow.
Any examples?
Before I move on, what did he say when you hit him with the comeback?
I hit him with his same line, and What's he gonna say? He gave me the same advice.
Touche.
He would be a bit of a hypocrite if he had something negative to say about it. So
Yeah, I think
at least he held true to his own authenticity.
Yeah, and I think I can fully relate to being an overdresser. I remember one of my first internships. I rocked up. Well, the interview was fine in a suit, but I think even my first day at work, I was rocking up shirt and tie to a lab job. So please believe I'm in the lab with my shirt and my tie. And it looked dapper, but after a while, one of the guys pulled me up and was like, you know you don't have to wear a tie every day, right? And part of me felt like, yes, I do. I need to make sure I look the part. No one's going to question. No one's going to use this as an excuse to call me unprofessional. So part of that, I think, also ties in with a bit of imposter syndrome. But as you said, now I'm able to show up as my authentic self. I think even recently, changing my hairstyle recently, that was something that I'd probably had a fixed mindset about for a while, and that, what are people going to think? And even when people saw me for the first time, they would panic and be like, oh, what are they going to say at work? And I had some of those misconceptions as well, but I'm still the same person that has been delivering results, delivering projects over the last X amount of time. The fact that my hair is now in locks as opposed to the safe fro, which I think was spoken about. I had a very safe fro, non-aggressive, no levels. It was partly because I didn't like going to the barbers either, but that's a story for another day. But I think long story was I wanted to show up as someone else's perception of a professional rather than being myself and being the professional version of myself. So I think is that finding that balance. And I'm so happy that I changed it. Now I feel younger. People tell me that I look younger. I feel confident in myself. And yeah, that's part of the growth mindset. So
I feel like I've just got to take a second to reiterate how deep what we've just said is, right? These are the sort of struggles that black men and women face, right? We have to think about how we want our own hair to look in a way that it naturally grows because we're concerned about how someone else might perceive us. Just on how our hair looks, which is actually totally mental. And to the point where we've now incorporated those external views and made them our own. So we are ourselves judgmental about the way that our hair should look or the way that we should dress. These are the sort of, I feel like it's deeper than microaggressions. Like, the society has
deep stereotypes, and it's when you, as you said, when you look at society, sometimes it comes from anywhere. Sometimes it might be your work. Sometimes it might be people in your family, and sometimes these people have your best interest because they've seen what the experiences of people with long hair or the stereotype straight away. You may be perceived as all these negative connotations that are associated with locks. I don't even want to reiterate them just to empower them, but you know them. And so I think part of it is breaking down what a black scientist, what a black engineer looks like, what success can be. And a lot of it comes with freedom as well. When you look at a lot of the most successful musicians now, a lot of them had locks. Whether you look as far back as Bob Marley to more recently J. Cole, J. Cole, Jay-Z, Akala.
There's power in the hair, man. There's power in the hair.
And I think there's power and freedom to do what you want with your hair. More recently, I read about a case in Ghana where there was a young gentleman who had dreadlocks called Tyrone, and he was trying to get into one of the best schools at the time. And basically in Ghana, when you get to secondary school, male or female, if you're going to one of the schools, your hair gets cut. And he was like, I'm not cutting mine, but I want to come to this school. And basically, it went to court. And long story short, he got it overturned. Went to Achimota School and became one of the best students ever. I mean,
course he did.
99% percentile in the SAT. So top tier scores. He was on the math and science quiz and was one of the best students. And imagine, they almost didn't let this guy in because he had long hair.
Madness.
So I think...
Big up Tyrone for keeping that iron firm mindset
100%,
though, and putting his head down and even taking it to court. He's like, the value of my authenticity is more important than however this goes down. But yeah, I mean, he sounds like he won on both fronts.
And I think as well as family, is his family had those beliefs for a while, so they had a very strong standing point. They also believed in his ability as well. They knew that Hassan was probably a genius, and they weren't gonna fold based on someone else's perception on what excellence or discipline looks like. So I think, especially when we're talking about equity, it's not just in the UK, it's something that happens all over the globe, and there's different perceptions, different angles, and it's understanding all these different dynamics and what we can do and how we can come together. So maybe someday we can get Tyrone on the podcast. It'll be great to hear his perspectives.
That would be wicked. Yeah. Just ask him about that whole experience. I think when it comes to mindset, it's really helpful to have a couple of people that you trust, or people whose values that you, people whose opinions that you value, just positively reinforcing you, and letting you know that they see you and what you're doing is cool. I think that can be really, really helpful for the foundations of forming your mindset. So I wanted to ask you, were there any particular in fact I'll ask this one. What does your mindset look like today? So like what's your how does your mindset lead you when you approach new projects or challenges?
So I think now my mindset is that time is limited. They often say time is money, but I think that is an understatement. You can always make more money, you can't make more time. So, and as they say, unfortunately, people die every day. So you don't know how long you've got left on this earth. And so I think with the time that I've got left, with what I'm doing, I like to make sure that it has, number one, that it's adding value, and number two, it's having as great an impact as possible. So those are probably the key things that guide my mindset. And so it's where I'm spending my time, what I'm doing, and the impact that it's having. And a lot of that's come through my kind of growing my growth mindset and understanding that my career could take many different directions. If I look back when I started my career and what I wanted to be in 10 years' time, when they always ask you, what's your 5-year plan? If I had achieved my 5-year plan, I think I'd be bitterly disappointed right now looking back 10 years. And so I think a lot of it is about taking opportunities that come, assessing the value that can be added, and tapping into that ikigai as well. For those that are familiar, ikigai is a Japanese concept which refers to the reason of being, and it's probably one of the best use of a Venn diagram that I've seen, and we'll probably pull it up as well. Yeah. But it talks about having that, finding what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and a skill that you can be paid for as well. And I think it's just bringing all those different capacities. So I've spent a lot of my career in the pharmaceutical industry, helping different types of patients and consumers, and I've found that to be really rewarding, but also tapping into my pharmaceutical knowledge and my scientific understanding and technical experience. So I think it's making sure that it has that alignment and realizing, as you said, that the opportunities are endless, and sometimes by having a fixed mindset, you actually put yourself in a box and think, this is what I could be. And we've spoken about many glass ceilings that we thought, this is probably the best we can do by this time. When actually, by thinking that, you won't take opportunities at the next level because you think, this is ahead of my 5-year plan. So I think it's having that open approach to trying new things, failing fast. Failure is the first attempt in learning. If it doesn't work the first time, okay, what are the lessons? We take it and we move on.
So you just mentioned the glass ceiling right now. My mindset is like the glass ceiling doesn't even exist anymore. Before it was like, okay, where do we reach in the glass ceiling? And then it was like, how do we break through the glass ceiling? But my mindset now is like, what glass ceiling? There is no ceiling. The sky's the limit. In fact, no, it's not. So, yeah, it takes time though. You know, you don't get to that point without having successes, whatever they might look like to you, reflecting on where you've been, where you've come from, and where you want to go, having a good plan, and you know, and those plans coming into fruition in some sense. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think that people need to spend more time nurturing, because the mindset could be the key to your success, essentially.
I agree, and I think flipping the coin as well. We've spoken about kind of the great side of mindset, or the open mind of mindset. Can you maybe give an example of when you've had a fixed mindset, or when you've been through some real tough challenges and you've been able to overcome them through that, or maybe you haven't been able to overcome them, but you've had to learn to deal with them as well? Are there any examples that come to mind?
I mean, there must be. What comes to mind? I think I'm going to need to think about it for a minute.
That's all right.
Let me throw over to you first.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure I've got one.
Yeah, I think for me, it ties in with one of our key themes around rejection is redirection. And big up to Idil, who was one of our very first mentees who coins the expression to some extent, and we decided to make it one of our pillars.
We're still going to get it on a t-shirt.
Exactly.
I'm sure we're going to have to pay her royalties, but...
That's right. And so I think the theme behind that was, at the time, or I think everyone goes through a period in their life where you're applying for roles, getting rejected, applying for roles, getting rejected, and it can break your spirit to some extent. But again, it's how you decide to look at the rejection in quotes. And so if you apply for a job, you get rejected. The goal was to be hired for a role. That's the long-term objective. But to get there, you've got to apply for the role, you've got to have a first interview, you've got to have a second interview, you've got to negotiate a salary, you've got to sign a contract, and then you get a role. So if you look at it as one big step and you didn't get to the end, so you failed, you don't take any lessons from it. But if you break it down into those steps, and actually you applied for the role, that's a tick. That's you did something. You took action. You had an interview for the role. Okay, that means you met the qualifications. You were able to get through, to beat the highly competitive market. That's another tick. You had a second interview. You didn't make it from there. So rather than beating yourself up from not making the overall goal, actually, you achieved 50 or 30% of the process. What can you learn from that? Okay, here's what I did well. What could I have done better going forward? And I think that ties in with another theme, which is around taking those losses and taking the lessons. And what you find is, if you take a loss, take a lesson, put the two together, you get a win. So you get a W. So
I love that.
A lot of the times, and what you find is, if you build up those L's, how am I going to do that? Yeah, it makes a staircase. And if you build up enough of them, you turn every loss into a lesson and you build them up, eventually, you're going to get to the destination. So it's having that mindset, having that approach, and also understanding that, it's okay to get upset when things don't go well. But what are you going to learn from it? What are you going to take from it? So that, number one, this exact same thing doesn't happen again. And number two, even if it does, it's incrementally better. So that's one that's always stayed with me.
I mean, that was super dope. I'm not even going to try and say anything after that, because you hit the nail on the head. What I took from it is that having a fixed mindset can also limit you from seeing your own successes, and having a fixed mindset can limit you from taking the learnings from your losses. So, yeah, I mean, that in itself is a reason to start trying to work on your fixed mindset, to try and turn it to a growth mindset. But, hit us up. We can talk to you about these things.
That is right.
So, Clive, I think we need to move on to the next section because time is of the essence. You were talking about how you can never get your time back.
That's
So
right.
I think let's make it a little bit more relaxed. I'd like to do something a bit more fun, if that's all right with you.
It was getting a bit deep.
It was all getting quite deep. So prepared some questions for a quick fire round. And I think we should just go backwards and forwards and throw these questions at each other. Quick answers. I know both of us love talking, so it'll probably drag on a little bit. But maybe a chance for people to get to know us a little bit better. We're not just people who talk about values all the time. You down for that?
Let's do it.
Wicked. So the first one I've got for you is favorite food.
Oof, that is a tough one, but also an easy one. I think one of my favorites is a Ghanaian delicacy called waakye, and it's basically a combination. That's right. We'll bring a picture up as well, but it's a combination of rice and beans, and we have it with a little bit of everything from gari, a little bit of spaghetti, some stew, some shito, and it just comes together to make this amalgamation of joy in your mouth.
It's like a buffet plate.
Yeah, and in Ghana it's served in a leaf, in like a banana leaf as well, so it comes real authentic, and even the thoughts of it now are making me hungry. And yeah, my wife cooks an amazing waakye as well, so you got me thinking about dinner time.
I'm fasting today, so I'm like,
sorry.
So I asked you the question, man. Don't worry about it. I'm trying to get some ideas.
How's the fast
Fast is going well, man. Thank you.
Happy Ramadan to you and to all the Muslims out there as well.
To all people celebrating around the world. It's a good time for reflection, no doubt. Favorite food for me, while we're on the topic, already getting hungry. I've got to give it up to my mum because she's still the best cook I know. And I've been cooking with her for years and I still can't make food the way that she makes it. So love my mum's chili con carne. There's just something about it, man. Love. Nothing like mum's pilau. Nothing like mum's pilau. And my brother is maybe going to listen to this and he's there nodding his head like that. Nothing like mum's pilau. So the pilau is like the rice with the cumin, a bit of garam masala. You sometimes cook it with some cardamom pobs and some clove, and then you usually put the boiled potatoes in as well, and you might have it with some chicken in there. It's a rice dish, but man, it hits different.
And so that's got like a Kenyan spin on it, is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of Kenyan food and Tanzanian food is actually inspired by Indian food. So even the name pilau, you'll have heard it from Indian cuisine. There's a huge Indian population. Like even within my own family, my sister-in-law, she's Indian, but her aunties and uncles like grew up in Kenya. They speak Swahili just as much as Hindi.
It's global world we live in these days, isn't it?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
This was meant to be quick fire, so we'll move on to the next one. Music, which I know is going to be a difficult one for you, seeing that you've got your own record label and everything that comes with it.
Got the decks back here. I've been DJing for like 10, 12, 14 years.
Jeez.
It's a big gap. Yeah, about 14 years. Listening to all types of music, running a record label. But for me, man, at the core of everything that I do, it's more than music for me. It's identity. It's hip-hop. Gotta love that hip-hop.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, man. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I said anything other than hip-hop. But I do love all types of music, and I listen to all types of music. For me, if the tune bangs, then you got to play it. You got to share it. Yeah, I will turn it back to you because I could speak about hip hop for maybe a 2-hour podcast.
A whole episode, eh? Yeah.
Easily.
I think for me, as much as I love many different genres, I've really fallen in love with pretty much everything Afro. Probably started off with Afro beats, but more recently, Afro jazz, Afro fusion, and just as you said, anything with that infectious beat and the frequency. So music is something that you got to feel. Anyway, let me before I go too deep into it, I think I listened to a set from Yusuf Days recently, which I'll tag in as well.
Yeah,
and Black classical music, I think, was one of the tunes. And
love that.
Amazing.
It's the
vibes.
drum patterns, man.
Poof, legend.
And they hit different.
So
good
we'll
job
move
on
on.
name dropping there as well. It's always good to share an artist or two.
Yeah.
My artist for the day is Black Thought. You should hopefully know Black Thought from the Roots, legendary Roots crew. And go listen to the album called Cheat Codes alongside Danger Mouse, because, I mean, it's got to be one of the best albums out there.
So moving on, hobby. What is your favorite hobby, pastime, activity?
For me, it's probably like rock climbing. I love being connected to nature. I love climbing. I've always loved climbing. I used to get in trouble for it all the time, climbing walls, climbing trees. I think my parents were scared that I might break my neck, but here I am, still climbing stuff. But it's funny because I went climbing the other day. I had my eye on this route. It was quite towards the beginning of the session. Hit the wall, probably a bit too hard, and actually dislocated my finger.
Matters.
Just popped right out.
Did you put it back in?
Pop back in afterwards, so it's okay. I mean, it's still sore now, and I'm not going to be climbing for like 4 to 6 weeks, I'm sure, but it won't stop me. I'll be back on that wall as soon as possible. So climbing is definitely one of my favorite pastimes, other than playing music and playing basketball.
Love that. Yeah, and I remember we used to do quite a bit of rock climbing when we were back in uni and afterwards as well, and something I definitely need to get back into. And I think similar. I used to. I need to stop saying that. I used to love playing sport, but I want to get back into playing football. At the moment, I love watching football and watching sport, and that's probably one of my passions, I'd say, and things that I like to do. As you said, nature as well. I'm big on spending time in nature.
Hiking.
That's right. So we'll move on. Favorite icon, celebrity, hero, legend. What have you got for us?
I think for me, it's got to be an MC, hasn't it? Really. If I was going to say anyone, it's going to be Talib Kweli. Talib Kweli. His name is the Teacher of the Truth, which is an excellent name. And he's Muslim, so another good thing to go for it from my perspective. Guy's just a genius, super dope MC, knows hip hop inside and out, amazing host. I think it's because I aspire to be like him, you know, as a rapper, but also as someone who holds space and just creates community. These are the things I guess that are obviously important to me. So yeah, Talib Kweli, and special shout out to Mos Def forming together the Black Star.
Love that. And
you, favorite icon, celebrity?
Yeah, it's difficult. I was thinking music as well. Then I thought about sport. Thierry Henry is one of my favorite legends, but I think I'm going to go with Lonnie Johnson, who is a NASA scientist.
I like Lonnie. And what did Lonnie Johnson do?
Lonnie invented the Super Soaker and also all the Nerf guns. And yeah, for me, before I even knew who made them, I think everyone can relate to summers with Nerf guns or Super Soakers and having loads of fun, or even seeing your children or people around you, and to find out that was made by a black man, Lonnie Johnson. Big up Lonnie. Yeah,
big up Lonnie Johnson. I'm like, can everyone tell that we grew up in the 90s?
Hopefully we're not
name dropping Super Soakers out here. But they're still about though, right?
I think that, especially Nerf now you can get the bazooka size ones and all these different levels. So yeah, big up Lonnie.
Wow, what a throwback, man. The Super Soaker. How about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one I've got is if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? And you didn't have any responsibilities.
Yeah, I think when you take away the responsibilities, it's a very different game changer. But I think, as I've alluded to, I'd like to be somewhere warm, somewhere with some spectacular natural views, hopefully some interesting animals as well. So I think I'm heading somewhere to the motherland, and I think Africa is often generalized as one big place, but whether I decide to go to Accra or go to Ghana and the Brie Hills and the mountains, or I decide to go to Zanzibar or go to a Kenyan safari, there's so many different facets, so many different aspects that I'd love to see, and very difficult to pick one at this moment in time. So I'm gonna say, I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna chuck it over
I'm like,
to
the
you,
tension, man, is killing me.
All the suspense and nothing.
Man.
I've always
all right,
wanted
I
to
got
see
the
the
vibe.
pyramids. I've always wanted to see the.
Okay, come on.
Yeah, I think
we
Egypt,
definitely got to save any comments for that for another
yeah,
podcast, because I spend too much of my time thinking about ancient Egypt.
Over to you.
I've always wanted to go to the Seychelles, man. I feel like it's a spot. Like, whenever I think about the Seychelles, I think crisp white sands, palm trees, beautiful crystal blue water.
Jeez.
I had a friend who went there once, and he took some pictures, I remember, and I just remember thinking, wow, this place is on Earth. Like, can you believe that? So, yeah, I think I'd love to go to the Seychelles, and if it was somewhere else, I like to go to weird places, man. I'd love to go to the Congo rainforest, even though I'm sure it's not very safe. And I'm not recommending that anyone try and catch a flight to the DRC right now. But the Congo rainforest, hang out with the bonobos. That'd be dope.
Jeez, that'd be sick. So next, moving on, what is your least favorite STEM subject?
Least favorite STEM subject? Well, traditionally, I would have said physics, because as a chemist, chemists hate physics, as far as I'm aware, and as far as people I've spoken to, even though you need to know physics to do chemistry. So that's what I would have said until I got interested in quantum mechanics, and now I love physics. So my least favorite STEM subject is actually maths. And in particular, like decision maths, anything to do with vectors, and imaginary numbers.
Sending shivers down my spine here.
You lost me.
I agree, and I think I've got maths trauma to some extent, because at one point I did all the science subjects for A levels, and instead of doing maths, I did sociology, and till this day my dad never understands that reasoning. We laugh.
You did what instead of maths?
Sociology.
Trying to understand people.
But I learned about self-fulfilling prophecies, which has stayed with me till this day. So, that I think is...
Talk about mindset, eh?
Exactly. So it's definitely paid off. Pet peeves. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Well, it doesn't really infuriate me because I'm quite a chilled guy, but just people who are annoyed on the road, man. People with road rage, people who like cut you off, people who like drive right up on your bumper. I'm like, come on, man, we're all going same place. You're gonna overtake me and you're gonna get stuck at the car behind me anyway. So yeah, it's them kind of people. But I get it. You've just had a bad day. I get it.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the coin, unfortunately, and no, I don't say I get road rage. What I get is walking rage. I think I've been described as a rapid walker, and so especially when you're walking in and about, I like to get from A to B as quick as possible. And so if you're going on a leisurely stroll, taking up the whole of the pavement, please believe you're not going to be my best friend. So, especially on the escalators, please stand to the right. So those of us that want to escalate quickly can do so. So
that's such a British thing, though, because in Europe they don't care, man. They'll just stand wherever they want on the escalator. There's no rules.
True.
That's funny. By the way, we shouldn't walk around very often together because you'll just be pissed off at me the whole time. You literally just described me.
I think we have a lot of the time, but I think we probably find a nice middle ground where you speed up and I slow down and we make it work.
Absolutely. All right, man. So, any phobias?
Phobias. So mine is a bit of a weird one. It's not necessarily an animal or anything like that, but I think when I was growing up, I used to have this kind of fear of failure, and I think as I've grown and my mindset has grown, I think is realizing that actually failure is fine. It's been described as the first attempt in learning, so you're probably gonna have to fail to some extent. And first attempt, fourth attempt, fifth attempt, these are all FAIL. So failure isn't the problem. It's probably not reaching my true potential and having the impact and being able to leave a legacy. So I think that's what's important to me, and maybe not taking opportunities or limiting myself. Just trying to be the best version of myself whilst I'm here.
Bro, you got deep, man. You got deep on them again. I thought this was supposed to be the relaxed part of the show.
Sorry.
But, I mean, a lot of people struggle with failure, so fair play, man. Fair play. It's good to be vulnerable and admit those things. My phobia is clowns, so not quite as deep, that's for sure. But if you've ever seen It, Stephen King, the film, you'll be fearing clowns too, man. Wow. But I don't it's not like the Joker from Batman, because he's a good clown and he knows he's weird. It's just these clowns that pretend like they're normal people and go to kids' parties. What's that about anyway, man? What are these clowns doing at kids' parties? Not about it.
Oh man, I'm glad you've given me that information. Let's hope I don't use it.
Sounds like I had a traumatic experience.
I was gonna say.
We're all good. I haven't had any strange encounters with clowns, but they are freaky.
So finally, last question.
Yeah.
What animal best represents you, would you say?
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's got to be a tree climbing animal of some kind. I think historically I would have said a monkey, because I am a bit of a monkey. But just because I'm also a weirdo, I'm going to go with lemur. You know?
Madagascar.
There you go, man. That could be another spot to check out. So yeah,
True.
I think there's something about lemurs that, they're cute and cuddly, but they're out of there and they got character.
I love that.
Yeah. What about you, man?
Well, I think, again, back in the day, I probably would have gone with one of the stereotypical lion or cheetah or one of the big cats. But I think as I've grown older, I see myself more as an octopus, which is...
Okay. Octopuses are amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I think the reason why I saw recently a video of one of these octopus in a coral reef, and it was doing all this different color changing camouflage where it would blend in when it needs to hide from predators, but when it wants to catch a prey, it would make itself the biggest, scariest version. And I just like the intelligence. And also, I think there was another video where there's an octopus in a jar and it knows how to use its tentacle. They're just so smart. And so
octopus is moving like David Blaine, man.
Exactly. I think they've got a brain in each tentacle, which is and it's
mental.
Maybe looking in awe of the octopus and being able to have some of those abilities to blend in when you need to, stand out when you like, and have as many limbs and many brains to do all different kinds of things.
If you can't optimize your lifestyle and your mindset with eight limbs and 8 brains, then something went wrong. Something went wrong. Yeah, go watch My Octopus Teacher. on Netflix. What a great film.
Great.
Love that, man. That was great. Yeah, I'm good to get to know you a little bit better as well.
I was going to say I learned some new stuff about you actually. Yeah, clowns. Yeah, I'll try my best not to use that against you one day.
I think I'd love to see you turn up dressed as a clown. I think that's the thing that's missing from my life. So, man, before we wrap up, we've got some exciting news. We've got some exciting news, and
can we finally?
You've been holding me back. You've been holding me back this entire time.
I think
you tell me.
Based on what I've just seen, tested, approved, and trusted.
Tested, approved, and trusted.
We are ready to go. We can make that announcement.
Jury's out.
I'm going to let you do the honors. Let them know.
Thank you. I've tried. I've almost spilt the beans for the last 2 episodes.
Oh, wait a sec. Wait, one sec. No, it's fine. You can go ahead. I thought
I was like, what are you doing to me here, man? So, listen up, everyone. It's exciting news. Today, we can finally announce that none other than the Royal Society of Chemistry are sponsoring the STEMinism, Equity and STEM podcast. And we are going to be interviewing some incredible guests from across the UK. Black, inspiring individuals, not all, but for the most part. People who have been successful across STEM, who have had unique challenges, trials and tribulations, and who have come out just absolute winners. And this is like a really, really cool opportunity. The Royal Society of Chemistry recognized the potential in the work that we're doing. Then we're like, you know what? Let's give these guys some peas and turn this dream into a bigger reality. So, gotta pay kudos to the Royal Society of Chemistry for the sponsorship. And we cannot wait to launch the podcast.
Exciting times.
It's in 2 weeks from now. We kick things off.
You guys, what we've put together, what we're planning for is amazing. We've got CEOs, we've got consultants, we've got professors, we've got doctors. You're going to be inspired by some of the challenges, the trials and tribulations, and the great heights that they've been able to reach. Some of these people, both male and female, men and women, have been in boardrooms of some of the biggest companies. They've been professors at some of the largest and most reputable universities. And you're going to get to hear firsthand their experiences, what it took to get to that level, how they got there, what they've had to overcome, and also their background, where their journey started, what the challenges were, what they had to overcome. And finally, it will look at how we go about achieving this equitable society in STEM, but also what we can do, how we can come together. So it's really exciting. Thank you so much to the Royal Society of Chemistry for giving us the sponsorship that will enable us to travel, have the equipment, and be able to bring you these conversations firsthand, in the hope that it will inspire, motivate, and provide you with the self-belief that if others can do it, you can do it too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Can we name drop? How nice are we? How nice are we, man? Can we name drop some of the people that we're interviewing?
I don't think we've got clearance for that. Well, you know what? Sometimes in life, you got to live on the edge, isn't it? So
sometimes you got to break a couple of rules, man.
I don't think we're breaking rules.
How about we do one each?
We're not breaking rules. We've definitely got it signed, sealed, and delivered. I think it's just around the timing. But you know what? I don't want to always be the guy holding back. So I will let you give us a name drop. Go on.
Should we do one each?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we are going to be interviewing none other than, I think at the time, the youngest master's graduate in the country.
Jeez.
Yeah, did her GCSEs at age 10.
What?
Boardroom, CEO, director, chairperson of, I don't even know how many organizations this woman sits on.
It's been on TV as well. You
see her on TV
quite
for
often.
sure. You've seen her on TV. Yeah, we're going to be interviewing none other than Dr. Anne Maria Mafidon. So keep your eyes peeled for that episode. It's going to be dope.
So many gems. And also, you may have heard me speak about this gentleman before. He holds doctorate degrees from the University of Cambridge. He hails from Kenya. He's one of the few professors in chemistry, one of the only black chemistry professor at one time.
The few?
And this as depth and breadth of knowledge in material sciences and also higher education and equity in education as well. And it was a pleasure for us to interview none other than Professor Robert Makaya. And so we will be bringing that to you over the next couple of weeks. There'll be episodes coming at you every 2 weeks. So every Wednesday, you can expect to hear the famous STEMism intro. And we're going to be giving you the insights from 8 other experts who will have to hold off for now. You'll have to keep coming back.
Come on the journey.
So drop a follow, drop a subscribe, whether you're listening to this or you're watching it on YouTube or on one of the various podcasts. Please engage, because that makes all the world of a difference to us and will enable us to further the movement and bring more guests and more insights. So really looking forward to that.
And please rate the podcast. 5 stars only though, yeah?
That's great. I think we are about time, Ali. Do you want to wrap us up?
I think that concludes it. So this has been the 3rd episode of the STEMinism, Equity and STEM podcast. As of 2 weeks, we are kicking off with our guests. So thank you everyone for listening. It's been a fun episode. A little bit deep, a little bit casual. We've got so much great stuff to talk about in the coming episodes. So as Clive said, like and subscribe. And we will probably not see you, but at least you'll see us in just over 2 weeks from now. Much love, everyone.
Peace and many blessings.